Imagine being forced to kill your best friend for entertainment, while Romans ate grapes and cheered. 73b. C. 70 gladiators, armed with nothing but kitchen knives and meat cleavers, would transform into an army of 100,000 that made Rome's legions flee in terror for 2 years. Then, 6,000 crucified bodies lined 120 miles of Rome's most important highway, each one taking days to die, while crows fed on their living flesh. This is the story of how cooking utensils nearly toppled an empire, how slaves became generals, and how one Thracian gladiator named Spartacus forced Romans to fight each other as gladiators while former slaves cheered their deaths. But here's what Roman historians desperately tried to hide. This wasn't just a slave revolt. This was the moment when 30% of Italy's population stood ready to rise and burn their masters alive. The entire Roman economic system that conquered the Mediterranean, that built roads spanning continents, that created laws still used today, almost collapsed because nobody checked the gladiator school kitchen that night in Capua. How did vine ropes defeat Roman military engineering? What made Crassus crucify one of his own soldiers every hour? Why did Spartacus choose to die fighting rather than escape to freedom? The answers lie in the most savage slave uprising in human history, where kitchen knives carved a revolution into Roman flesh, and where 6,000 crosses proved that even in death, the oppressed could terrify their oppressors. This is the real Spartacus, not Hollywood's hero, but something far more dangerous, a slave who refused to stay enslaved. Rome, in 73 B.C., was an empire built on human misery, measured in chains and blood. Out of every 3 people walking Roman streets, 1 was property, not a citizen, not even considered fully human, just property that could be bought, sold, tortured, or killed at an owner's whim. Between 30 and 40% of Italy's population lived in chains, powering the engine of the greatest empire the world had ever seen through their suffering and deaths. The gladiatorial games weren't just entertainment for bored Romans. They were political control, psychological warfare against the enslaved masses, designed to break spirits. Watch your fellow slaves die for sport in sand soaked with blood. Understand your place at the bottom of humanity. Accept your fate as livestock, with the ability to scream. Then something happened that defied all military logic and shattered Roman confidence forever. Lentulus Batiatus ran Capua's most prestigious gladiator school, not just any training ground, but Rome's factory of killers, where human beings were transformed into living weapons worth fortunes. Each gladiator represented an investment worth 20 years of a common worker's wages. These weren't just slaves, they were premium merchandise trained to kill beautifully while dying dramatically. The compound squatted like a fortress-prison hybrid designed by paranoid architects. 20-foot walls topped with guards, armed sentries at every corner, iron bars on windows, chains welded to beds so gladiators slept like animals. But Batiatus had made one catastrophic miscalculation that would cost Rome thousands of lives. He'd purchased a Thracian prisoner of war, a man the slave traders described only as difficult to break, a soldier who walked in chains but moved like someone who'd commanded armies. Spartacus arrived in Capua's gladiator school in chains, but his bearing revealed what Roman arrogance missed. This wasn't just another broken slave. His fighting style puzzled the trainers who'd seen thousands of gladiators. He moved like someone who'd commanded men in real battle, who understood military tactics beyond arena theatrics designed to please crowds. The daily routine was designed to break spirits while building bodies into perfect killing machines. 4 in the morning, wake up announced by clanging iron that echoed through stone cells. 10 hours of relentless training that left men vomiting blood. Wooden swords crashing against shields until arms couldn't lift. Sand grinding under feet that bled from repetition. The stench of straw, sweat, and fear in underground cells where men slept knowing tomorrow might be their last. Nightfall brought chains locking gladiators to beds like animals. Iron collars, ensuring nobody forgot they were property. But in darkness, whispered conversations spread like wildfire through cells. The Thracian spoke of mountains where free men lived, of battles where warriors chose their cause instead of dying for Roman amusement. Other gladiators listened with desperate hope. Crixus, an undefeated Gaul whose strength was legend, who'd killed 47 men in the arena without taking serious wounds. Oenomas, a doctor who'd been enslaved for debt, who trained others to kill but dreamed of teaching different lessons. The number is almost impossible to comprehend. 200 men imprisoned in Capua, knowing that despite 90% survival rates in arena combat, their lives meant absolutely nothing beyond the next show. They were worth fortunes as investments, but valued as nothing as humans. Living weapons locked away between performances where they murdered each other for ticket sales. Then came the day that would make Rome tremble for generations. A gladiator sold information about the escape plan to curry favor with Gladiatus, hoping for better food or fewer beatings. The conspiracy discovered, executions ordered for dawn. 70 men marked for death by crucifixion. The slow, agonizing execution Romans reserved for slaves and traitors. Time had run out in the span of hours. That night, as guards made their rounds, confident in walls and chains and Roman superiority, they didn't notice the missing kitchen slaves, didn't count the cooking knives that had vanished, didn't realize that in the depths of their human warehouse, revolution was stirring with sharpened steel and desperate fury. What transformed valuable property into Rome's greatest nightmare started with the humblest weapons. 70 men armed with kitchen knives, meat cleavers, and iron cooking spits faced guards carrying military-grade gladius swords, shields, and armor. The odds screamed impossible, but Spartacus's Thracian combat techniques is learned in real warfare, not theatrical combat, proved devastating in the close quarters brutality. While arena fighting favored spectacle and crowd-pleasing deaths, his style emphasized pure efficiency, strikes to disable arteries, movements to confuse trained responses, tactics to overwhelm through coordination. Crixus, the undefeated Gaul, fought beside him, his massive frame crashing through Roman formations like a battering ram made of muscle and rage. Oenomas the doctor directed the assault with a trainer's precision, turning chaos into coordinated attack that exploited every weakness. The compound erupted into screaming violence. Guards expecting cowering slaves met organized resistance that shouldn't exist. Kitchen implements found throats above armor collars. Cleavers split skulls. Iron spits punched through eye sockets into brains. Within minutes that felt like hours of concentrated murder, the impossible happened. Gladiators poured through the gates of Capua's most secure facility, leaving 32 dead guards in spreading pools of blood. They could have scattered into Italy's vastness, disappeared individually into the empire's shadows. Instead, Spartacus led them to Mount Vesuvius, a decision that announced this wasn't escape, but war. The volcano's slopes offered perfect defensive positions, steep approaches that exhausted attackers, hidden caves for shelter, abundant fresh water from mountain springs. More importantly, it sent a message visible for miles. We're not running, we're building something.